Tom, Michael and Sam were watching the Squid Game in awe. They were familiar playing the Squid Game, the regular game, without the crazy stuff in the show. They were in awe of the colours used in the show and the action. Their parents wouldn't let them watch the show, which they all thought was lame because they all were 13. Tom said to Michael and Sam, "I have such an awesome idea. Why don't we play a game like they do in that show?" Sam turned to him and said, "Have you completely lost your mind? What next? You're going to pull out a gun and give us one each to see who shoots the other?" Tom replied, No, listen, I have a really great idea. We can set up a bridge across the building's roof. My dad has a cool rope bridge we can use. All I need to do is throw it over from one roof to the next and tie it onto a pole. Whoever runs to the other side first wins, but whoever doesn't, well, then the person who's watching will cut the rope as soon as the winner is over. My dad has a cutting device that will cut it in seconds, and before ye ask, no, nobody's going to get killed. I have a bouncy safety thing my dad uses for the circus acts he does. Sam said, "That actually sounds pretty awesome, but who is going to cut the rope?" Tom said, "We will draw for it." A few minutes later they all drew what position they would play out of a jar, and Tom drew run, Michael drew run, and Sam drew watch and cut the rope. Michael said, "I don't want to play this game, it's stupid." Tom said in a mocking way, "Why, are you scared you're going to fall off and kill yourself from falling on a bouncy cushion cheese that is used in my dad's circus the whole time? You won't even hurt your leg if you fall even from that height." Michael was mad at his comments, and eventually Sam changed with him and decided to run instead of cutting the rope. When the game began, Sam and Tom both ran as fast as they could across the bridge. Michael thought he'd teach them a lesson and cut the rope to them both fall, knowing they wouldn't die anyway from falling on the bouncy safety cushion. As they reached the middle, he smiled as he cut the rope and then watched them scream as they fell. But his smile quickly changed when he heard a loud thud from below and people screaming. He looked down and had realized somehow the air must have escaped the cushion, and he realized his two friends fell to their death and were now lying dead in a pool of blood. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you enjoy the content then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of new content. Ben was relaxing watching TV when he decided to scroll through his phone and was shocked when he saw photos of himself posing with what looked like a dead body in his room. He scrolled through some more photos of him, smiling near a dead body. He not only didn't remember any of these photos being taken, but the only dead body he ever saw was of his grandfather years ago. He froze in shock and didn't know what to do. Suddenly he heard a siren outside his house, and there was a knock at the door. He answered to 2 police officers. 5 minutes later, they arrested Ben in his bedroom where the body that was in the photograph was taken. Ben was in shock, trying to explain to the police officers he didn't kill anyone and he didn't know how those photos were taken, and said they must have been photoshopped. A week later, experts analysed them and were confident the photos weren't doctored in any way. When Ben was in prison, he tried to comprehend what happened. 100 miles away, Jake, his twin brother, that he never knew he had, was writing in his diary, "Finally I got my own back on my twin brother, who didn't even know I existed. He had it all, a big house, parents, and a great upbringing, while I was bouncing from foster parents to foster parents, and most of them were drunk. Finally, Ben couldn't take it anymore and hung himself in his cell. At that exact moment, Jake felt a moment of peace and calm." Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you want to stay up to date on new content, then please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified on new content. Sam was working in a pet shop to face his fears. The reason he had a fear of birds was when he grew up in his town. Every time someone died in a mysterious way, he would see a bird follow him. He knew that if he worked in a pet shop all day, then it would break the random act of seeing a bird follow him. It was advice he took from his doctor in a local psych ward. He worried would it only cause more people to get killed, but luckily for 5 years now, he hadn't experienced any bird following him, and there was no mysterious death in his town. While Sam spent time in a local psych ward, he was trying to explain his situation. He eventually knew that all the doctors would think he was crazy if he kept believing when a bird followed him, there would be a mysterious death. So what he did was begin to tell the doctors he must have been going through some sort of breakdown, but he knows now that of course what he believed back then wasn't true, and he doesn't believe it now. Sam was on his laptop getting ready for the 5-year anniversary party of the pet shop. He was finishing the final touches, sending out emails to his customer list, reminding them that there will be free gifts and snacks all day tomorrow, celebrating 5 years of being in business. The next day the shop was full of customers enjoying the party. Sam was so happy that his plan had worked. He first realized it 5 years ago when he did what his first doctor said. It isn't real. The birds are not connected to any deaths. That is when the deaths stopped. He smiled over at his doctor, who treated him in the psych ward, while opening a bird cage. He whispered, "I believe the birds are responsible for deaths." Suddenly the birds followed Sam out of the shop, and just before the birds could reach the door, he made sure to run and close it, watching everyone in the store drop dead. Then he smiled and said to himself, "They should have believed me." Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you want to stay up to date on new content, then please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified on new content. Susan was looking through old papers and documents in her family home that was standing for over 300 years. She didn't remember her parents that much because they were killed in a freak accident in their garden. She didn't know the details. She had photos of them, and that is all she remembered. She was reading through different documents when she came to a certain one that grabbed her attention instantly. It read, "I put the treasure in the garden for safekeeping." It was signed by her mom. She noticed the date in the diary entry was exactly the same day her mom had her accident. She wondered, was she murdered for the treasure? This kept bothering Susan more and more. When she was out walking, she kept thinking, were her parents murdered for whatever was buried in her garden? She thought all through the years that her parents were in some sort of freak accident, and now she is worried that it was plain, old-fashioned murder. A week later, she had enough of wondering and just had to go out to the garden to dig up the treasure. There was a page that had the exact position of the garden where it would be. She had a pitchfork and shovel and dug until eventually she hit a hard piece of what she guessed was wood. Sure enough, it was a chest, and when she opened it, she smiled, seeing that it was full of what looked like priceless gold and jewels. She came across photos that made her nearly get sick, as there were photos of her parents and what she guessed were her grandparents, with some sort of spike in their eye. She suddenly heard a noise, and her leg slipped, and she fell on the fork, which gouged right into her eye. She screamed, realizing that the spikes in the fork were what were in her parents' and grandparents' eyes. She fell into the hole and screamed when she saw what looked like a white ghost hovering over her, and within seconds she realized there were bones near her, and seconds later she was buried alive. The spirit was of Mason Jeffers, the estranged son who was cut out of his inheritance over 250 years ago. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you want to stay up to date on new content, then please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified on new content. Joseph moved in with his wife Lisa to a house in a secluded area, but that suited him fine. They came from the big bright lights of New York City and wanted to move away from the hectic city lifestyle. At first, Joseph and his wife hated the quietness and stillness of the area. After a few weeks, Joseph found himself going crazy when he was trying to go to sleep at night with the sound of the waterfall nearby. It haunted him, and when he eventually did fall asleep, he dreamt of stormy weather or the waterfall while he was drowning in it. His wife seemed to just sleep through the night, and it never bothered her, no matter how loud or annoying it got. He wished he had earplugs, but couldn't believe they would do any good, as the sound was so loud. It was driving him crazy. The next day when he got up, he just sat down, nearly falling asleep in front of the TV, because he couldn't get no sleep at night. One night it was different. It was almost like the waterfall was calling his name to come to it. The sound felt much, much different. It was like music to his ears. It was like the complete opposite of what it was like before. He was smiling at how appetizing the sound seemed to be. He got up from bed and got dressed and walked towards the waterfall. The noise of it was like beautiful, relaxing, soothing music to his ears. Then suddenly he saw the most beautiful lady. He remembered then. How could he forget? She was just standing next to the waterfall, waiting for him to embrace her, and that is just what he was going to do, before he saw her skin colour change, and then he had realised the horror and what he kept locked away in a box in his mind and never wanted to open again. His wife had drowned in the waterfall a week ago, and he did everything he could to help her, but he just couldn't save her. He then realised who was the woman up in the house with him. Then he realised, of course, there was no woman up in the house with him. It was just his mind and the waterfall playing tricks with him. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you want to stay up to date on new content, then please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified on new content.